welcome to another episode of Turn Left. I am your host, Indiana's own Dana Black, coming to you live, yes, all the way live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Okay, so I said I was canceling the show tonight. My bad. I mean, Destiny had something she had to do. She's on that ballot. We want her to win. She had to cancel. She felt bad about it. She really wanted to come and talk to Turn Left listeners. But you know what? Because she wants to talk to Turn Left listeners, I have an idea. And so next week, watch something from us come out. Trust me, you're going to hear from Destiny, and I'm going to get a chance to interview her so we can highlight and donate to her campaign. But in the meantime, have a good night. Do what you got to do and go raise that money, girl. Go get that money. But because I didn't cancel it because remember last week I had another cancellation. I had to fill a slot and she was trying to get, my guest tonight was trying to get back on, but I didn't have any slots available. Well, guess what? She made it up. We are available tonight. So that's why we are having a show, because anytime I can highlight candidates and give them a platform to share who they are and what they're doing, we need to do that. So no off night for me tonight. We're going to talk to Malinda, but before we do that, I want to give a shout out to Cass County. I love my t-shirt. It's nice and soft and comfy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That makes me feel real good inside, that people like, yo, let's give this chick a little love. Thank you. I will wear it with pride. But now I got a rant. You know me. I gotta talk about something. The Indy Star reports Governor Holcomb said he won't issue blanket pardons for those with state-level charges of possession of marijuana, despite President Joe Biden's request for governors to do so. The president should work with Congress, not around them, to discuss changes to the law federally, especially if he is requesting governors to overturn the work local prosecutors have done by simply enforcing the law. Holcomb said in a statement, until these federal law changes occur, I can't in good conscience consider issuing blank pardons for all such offenders. He added that Indiana already provides an opportunity for those with a simple marijuana possession conviction to apply for expungement, sealing their records. I do agree that many of these offenses should not serve as a life sentence after an individual has served their time, Holcomb said. Expunged convictions cannot be disclosed to employers, to those who grant licenses, or when seeking housing. In a sign of some hope for weed proponents, an Indiana legislative committee is studying the health benefits and potential decriminalization of THC products, including Delta 8 and Delta 9, and could make recommendations on potential legislation to pursue at the group's next meeting this week. Look, real talk, Indiana, you losing out on revenue. You really are. People are going to Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, Ohio, wherever they want to go to get their weed, get their gummies, get their whatever they want. Y'all just missing out on money. That's all it is. So, but here's the deal. You remember how we was all like, man, we ought to be able to buy alcohol on Sunday. And the legislature was like, oh my God, church is on Sunday. We can't sell alcohol on Sunday. Oh my God, Indiana, no. And then the liquor people got together with the convenience store people and the distributing people. And they decided that, oh, now that we're all in agreement, let's go ahead and sell liquor on Sunday. See, all this high and mighty nonsense that the state legislator and that supermajority is talking about, it don't really matter. Once the industry is ready to go in Indiana, they're going to pass marijuana. It's going to happen. The question is, those of you who want to get in the industry, do you have all your ducks in a row so that you can take advantage of it when it happens? Because if you don't, the big boys will come in, snatch up all the spaces, and there won't be a space for you in the new industry. Just get your ducks in a row now, right? Just get your ducks in a row now so that you can take advantage, because it is coming. Me, I don't want to sell weed. I'm good. I'm just going to stay up here and keep talking mess. That's what I'm going to do. But I got some disturbing news that I want to share with you. LGBTQ plus Nation reports House Republicans have introduced a bill that would ban any entity that receives federal money from talking about sexual orientation or gender identity to children under the age of 10, going far beyond Florida's Don't Say Gay law. 32 House Republicans have signed on as co-sponsors of the bill introduced by Mike Johnson of Louisiana. The bill would cut federal funding to libraries, school districts, hospitals, government entities, or other organizations for hosting or promoting any program, event, or literature involving sexual orientation materials. The bill defines sexual orientated material as any topic involving gender identity, gender dysphoria, transgenderism, sexual orientation, or related topics, which could include an elementary school teacher keeping a picture of their spouse on their desk as a sign, or a sign at a hospital with a rainbow flag on it if kids enter the hospital. Guys, I know that there are a lot of y'all out there that don't understand what it is to be transgender. I know a lot of y'all don't understand what it is to be gay or lesbian or bi or any of those things. And honestly, you don't have to understand. You really don't. But the bottom line is, we as taxpayers, us on the Rainbow Warrior team, we actually pay into the system. So denying federal funds to organizations that may be helping young people who are battling depression, battling social anxiety because of their sexual orientation is saying that my money cannot be used to help people in my community. I need y'all to hear that. Now, no, first of all, there's some craziness in this bill talking about doing strip tease in front of 10-year-olds. That's a pedophile, boo. That's something totally different than what's happening. And look, the same dude, there was a dude that just got busted for masturbating in front of a school, but he was all about don't, groom kids. Y'all know y'all saw that article. But this is harmful to communities because maybe a parent doesn't have the language to articulate what their child is going through and needs a little help from a teacher who they may have a relationship with. Guys, real talk, you can't erase us. We ain't going nowhere. We've been around longer than any religion on this planet. Gay folks been around longer than any religion on this planet. I need y'all to understand, you can't erase us. All you're doing is harming our community, and we have a ridiculously high suicide rate. In fact, unfortunately, I have to attend services for a colleague who worked with me at Trinity Haven this Sunday because they took their life. This is real talk, y'all. People are hurting inside. And bills like this, what is it helping? How does this make us a better nation? How does this make us a better community? It doesn't. All it does is cause harm because some hateful folks don't understand what it is to be gay, what it is to be ostracized just because you are who you are. Just being mean, really. Just being flat out mean. And if that doesn't give you reason enough to show up to the polls and get your vote in, I don't know what else would. Because they come in, look, abortion rights was first. If they take over the House and the Senate, trust me, they're going to do a national abortion, a federal abortion ban. Trust me, they're going to make it so that you can't even talk about gay people all over the country. And what is with this school thing? I thought schools are supposed to be locally controlled, but they're going to pass a federal ban. Y'all need, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not trying to make you nervous and nothing like that. But we here and we pay taxes, federal dollars, and you're going to strip those away for anyone that wants to help somebody in my community. It's frustrating. But that's my rant. I think we can do better as a nation. You don't have to agree with everybody else. You don't. But you don't have to deny people access either. And that's what they're doing. All right, that's enough of my rant. And you know what? I'm excited. I'm so glad that we finally got a chance to connect and I can get this amazing personality on the show tonight. Y'all, my special guest coming from State Senate District 11, right? 11. Yep. Malinda Fountain. Malinda, welcome to the Oh,
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
yeah, I'm glad we were able to work it out, man.
Yeah. It took some doing, but we did it.
Absolutely, because if there's a will, there's a way, baby. And that's
That's
what's up. And I
right.
want the people to hear about you. So tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Sure. So my name is Malinda Fountain. I go by Mindy. I am a lifelong native born Hoosier. My family's lived here for several generations. I grew up on a farm as a kid in central Indiana, and then I graduated from high school in LaPorte in northwest Indiana. Um, I then went off to college in upstate New York and grad school in Poland, in Krakow, Poland. After that, I worked for a couple years at IU Bloomington, and then I joined the United States Foreign Service as a diplomat, and I served our country around the world for about 11 years. And after that, I thought it would be nice to come home, and so I was fortunate that there was a job opening in South Bend, which is where my mom's family is from, at the University of Notre Dame. At the same time, we wanted to come back, and they were opening a school of global affairs, and I had global experience, and it's near our family. So we came back in 2016, and we've been here ever since. And I live here with my husband and my 3 kids. And since we've been back, I got involved in public service since I really care deeply about public service. In 2018, I ran for the township board here in St. Joseph County, Clay Township, St. Joseph County, and won. It was the first time a Democrat had won a seat on that board, and as long as anybody could remember. I've also been involved in my children's school and the PTO, and well, I helped set up the PTO and then run it for a year, um, and also involved in some local organizations like a community pool and an organization that advocates for walking and biking paths. And this year, I decided to run for state senate.
Love it.
So we're 3 weeks out now. So
I love it. I mean, I think that's, first of all, your lived experiences are amazing. You might be way overqualified to go in that state senate. They're not gonna be ready for you over there. Oh my God. Oh my
I
goodness. You're
speak
gonna
5 languages too, so maybe I speak something they'll understand in Indianapolis.
I mean, you know what? I tell you what's scary is like those folks over there might see you coming and you might start speaking another language and they'll be like, what? They're just not going to be ready for what you bring. So what made you want to go into the foreign service like that? I mean, that is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. Well, my grandfather, when we were little, he used to play language tapes in the car because back then it was tapes. Because he used to travel a lot for fun. And my mother and her siblings they had all done some kind of like summer trip, just even if for a short time. And so that really helps when like someone who's done it and it seems like a thing that you could do. And then I wanted to do some kind of public service. I actually considered the military, but it wasn't a good time. It was right after the tailhook scandal, and it wasn't a good time to
Mm-hmm.
go into the military. And I loved the idea of traveling. And as a student at the university, I studied abroad a lot, and I found that I liked traveling and learning languages. And I had some classmates who joined the Foreign Service and encouraged me to try it out. And turned out that I got in, and it was quite an adventure.
What was the most unexpected event during your time in the service?
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of unexpected things. Our very first tour, I say our because your family goes with you, and they're very much a part of your experiences. It's not like the military where you live on bases. You live in the cities. You're usually in capitals or large cities if you're at a consulate, and so you live amongst the people who live there. So you're very much immersed in the culture. And I mean, from the get-go, our first tour was at the UN in New York,
Ooh.
and it's a very busy place. Of course, I was at the US mission to the UN, and there was one day where The much more senior officer who was supposed to deliver a statement didn't make it for some reason. Her schedule got messed up. I don't know what happened, but I had her remarks back then. We had them on paper. It was that long ago, ready for her. And so I had to deliver them. And so I had this experience as a, 20 something in a UN committee sitting behind the, United States flag, given the remarks, having the whole world looking at me. And that was intense. Of course, when we were in, so we served at the UN, we served in Warsaw, Poland, we served in Tbilisi, Republic of Georgia during the Russian invasion.
Mm.
That was a big surprise. When we got assigned to Georgia, it was before the invasion. And, it wasn't a place we were familiar with, but it looked like a really interesting place to live.
Mm-hmm.
And they were supposed to have good food and wonderful people, and all those things were still true. But then in 2008, the Russians decided to invade. And so our entire experience, because we arrived in 2009,
Mm-hmm.
was a wartime tour.
Ugh.
So that was very intense.
It seemed like Vladimir Putin ain't got nothing else to do.
No kidding, than to just go around and try to collect territory. Yeah, and my master's degree is in European studies, and I got it in Poland, like I said, and so, but I got it in 2003, and so at the time it was like, oh, what are you going to do with that master's in European studies, what all that Central and Eastern Europe experience? And now, I mentioned I work at Notre Dame, and I work with students who study global affairs, and I was talking to an alumna today about her spouse and how he's studying NATO and Russia, and it's like, it's all, sadly, right, it's all what's happening again. And so yeah, it wasn't what we thought we'd be living, right? We thought this was something that we left in the past.
Yeah.
But that's why you have to understand it, right?
Right.
We have to understand who we're dealing with. We have to have people who understand what has happened and who can understand how to handle these kind of situations, because
Yeah.
like you said, he's not an easy character to figure out.
No, he's not. And it's unfortunate because, his behavior is causing such a negative impact all over the world. So like, we can't even
Absolutely.
pretend like, okay, he's not invading us, but his actions, look what OPEC did. Look what, the supply chains, and Ukraine is like, a big supplier of grain to the rest of the world. And it's like, come on. Like, so we can't even pretend like we're not involved or have something is impacting us from his behavior over there in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. Americans are definitely feeling the pain of the gas prices, and, inflation has to do with bigger issues, but it certainly doesn't help. And, there are parts of the world where they get a significant amount of their food from Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
and they just don't have any place to make up for it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, we could talk about that the whole time, but yeah, it's
we won't. But it's it's one of those interesting topics. Like, that's it's
absolutely.
it's something very unique about you. I don't have a lot of guests that come on who spend so much time. I do have one more question about that though.
Yeah, absolutely.
So politics is everywhere. It doesn't matter what country you're in.
Yeah.
Give me an example of something that you see that happens over in European nations that could be beneficial here, and things that you're glad that we don't do, right? Right? I mean, come on. Yeah. Because nothing's perfect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, maternity leave, that would be something that happens in other countries that we don't do here, that we really, really, really need to do. I mean, there's all this talk, we'll probably get to it later, but, in Indiana, they're restricting women's access to reproductive health care, and there's no maternity leave. So for a nation, and for, these politicians who claim that they support women and families and babies, well, if you support babies so much, then why are you forcing their mothers to go back to work, immediately after they're born? I mean, it's ridiculous. And I had my first baby when we were in Republic of Georgia. It was an intense time. And there was a French diplomat who was talking with a colleague of mine and just could not believe that Americans did not have maternity leave and couldn't believe how quickly I would be back to work. And we're one of the only developed countries in the world that doesn't have some kind of paid maternity leave. Of course we have FMLA, but that's unpaid.
Right.
And you have a new baby is a paycheck,
Yeah.
probably a bigger one,
Yeah.
right? Not a smaller one, not a break from your pay. So yeah, we got a lot of room to improve when it comes to women and children and family issues, and Europe does that better. And one thing you said that we should not do,
Yeah. And you're glad we
a lot
don't
of
do.
things, there are things that we don't, I'm glad we don't do, we shouldn't do. And this is kind of flippant, but one time we were in Poland and we ordered pizza, and the pizza arrived, and we did our best. Like, my Polish was decent, but I don't know, maybe we pointed incorrectly at the menu. The pizza had both mayonnaise and corn on it. And I like corn. I grew up on a farm where we grew corn. It's nothing against corn, but it just doesn't go,
Mayonnaise
particularly
and corn
mayonnaise
on a
on
pizza?
pizza.
Nah, dog.
Yeah. It's just not, that shouldn't be.
That is not a combo. No.
No.
You said,
So you got to watch what you order.
you said that you are you work with you work at Notre Dame, and we know that of all the universities, probably Notre Dame and probably Purdue are two of our more conservative universities. As a Democrat, how do you manage to balance that? Because you obviously want to keep your job, right?
Yes, I do.
How do you manage, the expectations of what the university stands for,
Yeah.
and what you believe, or are you all aligned? Is it all good and we just think it's something that it ain't?
I mean, the first thing I'll say is Notre Dame believes in academic freedom. I'm not an academic. I do teach a professional development class, but I'm not an academic. But they do believe in academic freedom and diversity of thought, and for people to have their own beliefs. And Notre Dame is a Catholic university, but not every person there is Catholic,
Right.
and not everyone who works there is Catholic.
Right.
And so there are a diversity of views, probably more than it may look like from the outside, because of course they are a Catholic university and very proud of that. But it is also, it's a place where people go to learn and to think and to discuss ideas. And I have a lot of support from my colleagues
Good.
at Notre
Good.
Dame, which I'm grateful for.
Good.
And yeah, and in general, the elephant in the room, of course, when you talk about Catholicism, is abortion. But if you look at polls of Catholics, their views align largely with the general public. There's this idea that Catholics are more restrictive, and the doctrine of the church, is very much, anti-abortion. But the thing is, anyway, of course, we could talk about that.
Keep going. Keep going. You're doing good.
Nobody is like for abortion, right? I think that is something, now that it's the discussion that we're just going to keep having until we can get somewhere on it. Like, that was never a thing. The question is, who's making decisions and when, right? And about what, and what are the consequences? And so what has happened since Roe was overturned in Indiana is exactly what people are afraid of, right? Is that the government is stepping into people's very, very private lives, and where it does not understand and it doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Right? Because having children is complicated, being pregnant is complicated. There are all kinds of things that doctors have to spend a lot of time studying and learning about and experiencing that are completely lost in the bill that was passed by our state legislature. And that's why they shouldn't be involved.
Exactly.
Right?
Was the abortion debate one of the bigger reasons why you decided to step up to state senate from township board?
So yeah, no, actually not. One of the bigger reasons was education. Speaking of, university, I was appalled in January in the session where they were talking about how teachers needed to be neutral on isms like Nazism and fascism to a Indiana teacher. And the teacher had to push back on this state senator and say, well, actually, no, we need to learn from our history, and we will not be neutral on Nazi. I mean, the fact that this is even happening, we ended up on the Stephen Colbert show, the state of Indiana, and he made a joke that pretty soon all they'd be teaching in Indiana was gym class, and it was like, how can these be the people representing us, right? Like, people in Indiana don't think that we should, not be against Nazism. It's totally ridiculous, right? It's totally ridiculous. But they had their, CRT bill that they called something else, right? And they were trying to find a way to push it through. And it was yet another disaster for the people of Indiana and for the teachers of Indiana, who then had to spend huge amounts of their time and energy, of which they have very little to start with, right? Because they're supposed to be teaching, fighting this back so that they didn't have to plan their lessons a year in advance and post them for the state when they didn't even, teachers are supposed to be teaching the students in front of them, right? Not some artificial plan that has nothing to do with what the kiddos that they're trying to help learn and develop actually know and can do. And so there's just so much there, right? And it's gone on year after year after year. Red for Ed was only a couple of years ago, and we saw all those teachers down in Indianapolis. You thought, okay, this is going to get attention. Now they're really going to listen to teachers.
We even wore their colors,
right? That's good.
Red for Ed, come on, y'all, we with you. They still got ignored.
That's good. Yeah, and it's just, year after year, they just continue to find ways to make it harder. And, like the voucher system, when they started it, they claimed was going to be to help underprivileged kids in failing schools, which sounds great, right? It sounds great to help low income underprivileged kids in failing schools. But now, if you're a family of 5, you can make up to $180,000 a year and qualify for vouchers and send your money somewhere else. And, I have no problem with people sending kids to whatever school they want to, but I do have a problem with the public schools being emptied of resources while all these entrepreneurs for charters and private schools are making money with public funds.
Yeah. Oh my God. And you know what's so funny, Malinda? You said you go by Mindy, right?
Yeah, you can.
I'll probably be going Malinda. It's a hard time for me to change. But what's crazy is like they were trying to deal, or the way they framed it was, we want to help underserved communities, and those are typically Black and brown communities, right? We know the goal was to privatize Black and brown communities, but the unintended consequences, and I know that you understand this growing up on a farm, rural counties, rural school corporations, they don't have that many choices in these counties. And so now, and because all the money is in the same pot, right? That means these same rural communities have to do the same amount of work with less available funding to them. And that's what's so crazy. And I just don't understand why folks continue to vote for people that are going to harm them, literally harm their community, and lie to them at the same time. Because I'm sorry, nobody's teaching a law school level, graduate level course on critical race theory, other than the fact that they hate knowing that, the propagandized version of American history ain't flying no more because of the internet. I
mean, and that's what I don't get, speaking of the internet, then you have these people who want to ban books. I mean, it's,
banning books.
Speaking of, it's like, how is this happening in America?
Yes.
In any time period? But today, we're the ones who go around the world, speaking of my former job, speaking up for press freedom and freedom of speech and freedom of thought. And somehow this movement has gotten traction. And it's like, by the way, everyone, you just want to say to them, internet, there's an internet where your kid, if you're worried about your kid, whoever you're worried about, you get on the internet and read it anyway.
Exactly.
So like all you're doing is like stirring up trouble and showing yourself to be a bigot. And it's just, I don't know.
It's crazy. It's insane. It's almost like people are doing the things that they should have learned about, but apparently didn't. Right.
And this is why you have to learn history, right? This is why we need good teachers. This is why we have to understand our past.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah, that education piece was a humdinger. And I remember telling folks, after the election last year, I was like, y'all not finna hear a whole bunch about CRT after this election. Sure enough, it went away. But now they're doing the don't say gay thing, and it's coming
Mhm.
back. And now we got the abortion. But talk to me about climate change. I'm still feeling for the folks down in Florida,
Yeah.
and the impact that those storms are having and the climate change is having on people. And then on top of that, insurance companies are saying, "Look, we're done. We're not gonna even sell policies, right, in these states which are harmful to families." Talk about how you see climate change and Indiana's role
Mhm.
in improving what we do for our climate.
Absolutely. This was actually one of the other reasons why I wanted to run for
I
this
didn't even
office
know
in
that.
particular, because my opponent, who is a builder, that's one of her businesses, her family's businesses. She, along with a couple other builders, got together and overturned Indiana's wetlands protections a couple of years ago. She's only been in for one term, but she's done a lot of damage. And wetlands are one of the ways that we control flooding, like you were referencing, and we clean our water. And you can't easily get these back once
Mm-hmm.
they're gone. And actually in neighboring states, in Ohio, now they're trying to rebuild their wetlands because they want them there to help with flooding and clean water. And it's like, this is why not only do you have to understand history, you have to understand what's happening right now, and you have to have folks representing us who are more interested in the welfare of the people that they
Mm-hmm.
represent than in enriching themselves, because that's what happened with that bill. A bunch of builders got together and thought, we're going to save ourselves some money by getting rid of these wetlands protections. Oh, if there's more flooding, oh, if the water's dirty, someone else will deal with that later. Well, we're the ones who are going to deal with it, right? And it's going to happen a lot sooner than they think. For my when we moved back, my very first day of work at Notre Dame, um, I couldn't go to work because there was what they called a 100-year flood,
Yep.
and the whole city had to be shut down. Well, except for now, they're not 100-year floods anymore, right? They're like every couple year floods. And there are just so many implications of this. We need to do everything that we can to preserve whatever nature already has in place,
Mm-hmm.
right? To help us manage it and more, right?
Right.
Like, we need to have more green businesses. We need to be attracting industries that both help Indiana's economy and help position us to have clean power now and in the future. Um, these are all things that we can do together. It's possible, but we have to put some thought into it. We have to do some planning. We have to listen to the environmentalists when they say, if you do this, you will have this negative
Mm-hmm.
consequence. And we can do it in a way that also, creates new jobs for our state so that everybody wins, or at least a lot more people win.
Exactly. And I think that that's the most important thing because we are hearing from our CEOs of our largest companies that we don't have the workforce that we need here. And that goes back to your education piece, but the
Mhm.
new this new energy, new green energy, and I know these people hate the new green deal or whatever it's called. They hate that. I don't know why. If they came up with it, they'd like it, but you would think conservatives would like to conserve. Never mind. Forget that. But forget that part. But we are losing out because we don't think long term, and that's the thing that kind of bugs me. It's almost like we live in a 2 year cycle here in Indiana, where
Yeah.
if it's a budget year, we got these things, but it doesn't seem like there's a real effort to think 10 years down the road. The businesses are right.
Hmm.
Like Eli Lilly says that they are basically retooling what they do here in Indiana to accommodate for the level of education, which is basically bringing the wages down.
Hmm.
They're looking at long term, but it doesn't seem like we are doing that in Indiana. How do you think that you would be able to like change that thought process when you're in the state
Hmm.
house?
Well, I mean, you bring up a really good point with Eli Lilly, because these things all come together, like the social issues, the economic issues, because people in the United States are very mobile,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, if we get a good enough offer somewhere else, we will move to another state. And Indiana has to compete for talent, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to grow talent at the same time. And we definitely have to compete for businesses that have highly skilled, well-paying jobs, right? And so instead, our Republican supermajority is doing the opposite and creating a climate that's going to turn off employers who have
Mm-hmm.
these highly skilled, well-paying jobs, because their employees aren't going to want to work here.
No.
You know, we already have a problem not having enough, like speaking like doctors, for example, right? We already don't have enough doctors in the state of Indiana, particularly for women's health
Mm-hmm.
care. And now IU already is sending their own residents to Illinois because they can't get the training that they need in Indiana. And, you know, that's just one industry. You know, Eli Lilly's looking for like highly skilled scientists, and they can't find them here, right? So they're moving to other states and they're building new campuses, and they're saying, look, you're not producing the talent that we need. And so we're going to go where we can get it. And it's just,
Exactly.
it's really, like you're saying, it's really short-sighted, and it doesn't serve the people of the state well.
No, it doesn't. It's almost like they want us to be, behind Mississippi in all the categories. It's almost like they
Right.
they want us to like, be a colony of low wage workers, right? I mean, it's a little frustrating, especially when you hear them talk about all the time about it's the economy, inflation, but you're not even doing anything to make it better for people, right? You're
Right.
not doing the things to make it better.
Right. And at the same time that the Republicans complained about President Biden sending out COVID relief to families and blaming him for inflation, they then did the very same thing, and they can't stop talking about it, right? Well, we sent you a couple $100, your whole life should be better now. Well, unfortunately, our gas prices are some of the highest in the country. Our gas taxes are some of the highest in the country, and they wouldn't do anything about it. The Democrats started in March and said, let's put a freeze on the gas tax, and they just wouldn't. The Republicans just wouldn't. So, you know, for them, it's just they're more interested in power and in lining their own pockets.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all we can conclude, right? Than they are in
Yeah.
serving the people of the state,
Yeah. And
and then finding someone else to blame for the problems.
exactly. And gas is going to go up again in November, like 1.1 cent. It's going up again, the gas tax.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
like, no, they don't want to. And it's what's so crazy is, I mean, even their own families, their own communities are going to be falling under the weight of a lot of the policies that they create with that. And I don't know to a man, to a woman, how you can continually, look at the people of your state and go, psh, they don't need nothing.
Right. I don't know. And why do they want, this is what the voters need to ask themselves, look at the voting records of of the people on the ballot, right? And so look at, my opponent, for example. See what kind of legislation she's putting forth. See who benefits from the legislation. Is it the people of this district? Is it the people of the state? Look at her donor record. Who's contributing to her? Are they all, grassroots local community members? No, she's getting tens of thousands of dollars from charter schools,
Mm-hmm.
for example. People who run, and this spring she got a $10,000 donation from a super PAC funded by the billionaire founder of Netflix. So she's going national in her charter school support. And she's got a whole ad right now on about how she supports teachers. They're just completely disingenuous.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
That's
and
frustrating.
looking us in the face and saying one thing and doing another. And so the people of Indiana, we've got to get smart. You've
Yeah.
got to see who's on your ballot, and you got to get out and vote. Our voter
Absolutely.
turnout is
And take a friend.
huge. Bravo. Yeah, exactly. Take all your
Take
friends.
all your friends. Carpool like a
Make it
mug.
fun. Yeah, you can early vote. You can go on a Saturday, go out to brunch and go vote, make it fun. Just do it,
Yeah.
because we're going to get what we vote for or what we don't vote for, right? If you stay home, you can count on other people showing up and
Mm-hmm.
making their choices.
Another thing that frustrates me wholly is that we as women are 51% of the population of the state here, and we're barely 30% of our elected officials in the state house. I think it's more like
Yeah.
27 actually. what would it mean to you, what does it mean to you as a woman to be running for this office? And do you believe that we as women have a greater impact, or we change the conversation, right? Talk about what it
Yeah,
means to be a woman on the ballot this year.
sure. I think it's incredibly important to have more women at the table. It's also incredibly important to have more pro women people, because my opponent is a woman, but she's voting. She voted against exceptions for rape and incest
So
for
it's not just
abortion
being a woman;
families.
it's being pro
You
woman.
have to be pro woman,
Yeah,
right? You have to be a woman who's actually there representing the interests of women and families. And if we had more women at the table, perhaps we would have some kind of maternity leave, or at least an effort. Maybe we would have preschool. Maybe our public school coffers wouldn't be emptied out, right? Because we'd like to think we've made a lot of progress, but particularly during lockdown, during COVID, right? Like, there was a lot of talk about how women were just taking on more and more. Women are falling out of the workforce, because the reality is we still do a lot of the work at
yeah,
home. We do the cleaning and the cooking and the arranging of the things for kids and the childcare and all of that. And so we know and care about those issues, right? And
yeah,
so if we're not at the table, then those issues are not getting the attention that they need. And also, it's just a diversity of thought, right? Like,
yes,
we have different experiences, in addition to whether or not you're a parent, whether or not you're at home. You've been treated differently. You've been treated differently in every aspect of your life. Um, and that just creates a richer conversation. And it's also just about representation.
yeah,
No matter what happens with my campaign, I can be really proud of the fact that all of my kids, my son as well as my daughters, but my 9-year-old has seen me. She goes out and knocks on doors with me all the time, and she sees me out there trying, right, out there fighting for her
yeah,
future, and she knows that she can do that,
yeah,
right? That the fact that she is a girl doesn't mean that somehow she is less than
yeah,
when it comes to these institutions, because she sees me out there doing it. And like you said, she doesn't see it in the representation. And she's asked very astute questions for a 9-year-old about, like, well, why are all these men making these decisions for women? If this isn't something that can happen to them, why are they making the decisions? Well, if a 9-year-old can ask it, perhaps we need more women in the state house and pro women representatives who are asking those questions.
absolutely. I agree 100%. I had a conversation this weekend with someone about, no one gets to determine who you are as a woman, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't, just because I know I'm a woman. I knew. And every now and then a hot flash will kick in, girl, and it's a wrap. So even if I wanted to pretend like I ain't, and I was trying to like fool people, when they see me sweating, all of a sudden, either I'm a crack at it or I'm going through the change. but, 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 but one of the things that I've always believed in is that no one gets to tell me who I have to be as a woman,
Yeah.
right? You
Mm-hmm.
don't get to determine, how I dress, how I present. And I believe that when you bring those different voices in, we're having conversations that sometimes dudes just ain't having. I mean, and they're
Yes.
having conversations that we're not having, but God, good Lord, they've been having them damn conversations forever. I'm about sick of them. And on top of that, real talk. And you don't, because you got to go get votes. So you may not have to comment on this. I really want them to be, I want their testes to be as strong as some ovaries. Because see, these boys are like some of the scaredy cat dudes. They run around like Jim Banks. He runs around like he hard, but as soon as his orange boss tells him to sit down and shut up, he does. I mean, I just need. I don't believe that I need to agree with everything that my state party does or says. I believe that we gonna be down with each other 75 to 80% of the time. I'm cool with that. I'm not walking a line because you want me to walk a line. I still gotta look in the mirror and like myself. And I believe as
Right.
women, not all of us, because you got some clowns out there, but I believe as women, because we've had to fight for so much. I had a This ain't got nothing to do with nothing. I had a conversation today with a dude about my PC. My hard drive crashed and my desktop. Y'all need to feel bad for me because I'm suffering right now. I'm down a machine. My other four are fine, but I'm down a machine. And I called the IT guy because there was a specialty thing I needed him to do on my hard drive. And he proceeded to talk down to me the whole time.
Oh,
And I'm like, dude, I have 3 degrees in IT. I'm not a novice here. You don't have to keep talking to me like that. To the point where he was rude. I said, you know what, bro? Check it out. I'm good. I'll find somebody else. I mean, again, power, dynamics, patriarchy. I don't know why I told that story. It just was an irritant, probably.
no, that's an important story. I mean, that's why they call it mansplaining,
Oh,
right? You know, it's a meme because it's so true, right? Like memes about like women who are at conferences and men are talking to them at the coffee line and, you know, citing them to themselves, and then they have to say, I'm, you know, Dr. So and so, like because that's where we are. You know, we really, I think, you know, women of our generation, I think we thought that we were further than we are, to be
yeah.
honest. You know, when I was in college, I thought, you know, we're all here. It was about half and half, like gender wise. Like, of course I can do what any of my classmates can do. But in the last several years, we've seen, you know, it may have been more under the surface, but we have a lot further to go than we thought we did, and we have to keep fighting. You know, I
Absolutely.
mean, apropos of our earlier conversation, you know, like we thought certain things were decided. We thought that we had a right to privacy that was settled. We had Supreme Court justices telling us in their confirmation hearings that it was settled. We
Liars.
thought some things were decided, and what we're learning is that they're not.
And they weren't
They're open
truthful.
for discussion, right?
That's the, but they weren't
And we
truthful.
have, yeah, we got to keep calling them on it. We have to keep fighting.
Yeah.
Sadly, right?
Yeah.
We're fighting the same fights that our mothers and grandmothers did,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely. So you
that's
you win the
yeah.
election, and you guys know on organization day, you guys have to
Mhm.
get together and submit your bills. What's the
Mhm.
first bill that you either want to submit or sign on
Mhm.
to?
An education bill to help support teachers and schools, because this fall we had a shortage of thousands of teachers when school started. We have decreasing numbers of students going into education at our universities, and the profession is basically hollowing out,
Yeah.
and we have to do something stat.
Yeah.
I mentioned my daughter, she started school this fall. There was no teacher for her class, so they had to take both of the classes, put them together. She was in a class of over 40 kids for weeks while they searched for another fourth grade teacher, because they had both quit and they had replaced one, but they couldn't replace the other
Wow.
one. Thankfully, they finally were able to do it. But in the meantime, you know, how much learning loss occurred. And that's just one teacher, you know, across the board. Everybody's got a story about this, right? Anybody who
Mm-hmm.
knows a teacher, anybody who has a kid in school, there are vacancies, and it's not just teachers, it's also staff,
Yeah.
right? Like there are vacancies everywhere, and it's about pay. It's also about respect. They're tired of
Yeah.
having to march on the Capitol
Yeah.
on the regular, right?
Yeah.
Like that should not be. This is one of the main responsibilities of the state of Indiana. This is one of the main reasons why we have our state government, is to help educate the population, is to be responsible for our education system.
Yeah.
And, you know, my opponent's claiming that she supported this pay raise for teachers. The pay raise was only because they had an unexpected surplus,
Right.
right? You cannot run a multi-million dollar statewide education system on surprise money,
Right.
right? You
Exactly.
can't run anything
It
that
doesn't
way,
work that
right?
way.
And you wouldn't, right? It doesn't make any sense. And it just, and this is so important. This is our children. This is our
Mm-hmm.
future. This is our economy. This is our workforce.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no matter where you sit in this state, education matters. Education is essential. And it's not, it's, they're not getting the job done.
Yeah, and
They
and
are,
what's so crazy is that they're allowing, and listen, I understand parents want to have all the say that they want to have a say and have a say, but you get to go to the PTO meetings, you can go to and sit in on school board meetings and all that other stuff. But why are we letting parents who have no understanding of how to educate people, right? Because it's a skill, it's a science,
Mhm.
right? Uh, Dictate what teachers are teaching. And why not? One thing that we do know is that these parents who are moaning and groaning about what's being taught is not taking into consideration the other parent that may want that type of education. So they literally are dictating, like, we don't want this in our school, and we don't want it for you, even if you want it in your school too. And it's just, why do we let that happen? People who are not skilled, trained, educated in education, we are allowing them to dictate what happens. That's like saying, you know, I need to get a heart cath, but I'm gonna talk to the person that's never gone to school, never
Right.
gone to med school, never didn't even graduate didn't even take a biology class in the ninth grade. I'm gonna let
Right.
them
Right.
tell my doctor what they should do to my body. It's,
Well, and that's actually in part what you described as the beauty of public schools. We do have school boards. Like, our public schools are democratic. And so we have we as parents have a say. It's, and there's this whole narrative that they've come up with as if they didn't have one, but they've had one all
mm-hmm,
along. How many school board meetings have you been to where there aren't any parents,
yeah,
right? The school board members sit there for hours and hours and go through so much material most of the time. And then you have these extremists who are coming in and making all kinds of wild claims
mm-hmm,
about what is and isn't being taught. And that's part of what's exhausting the teachers, right? Like, they they've been through so much since Daniels was in office, right? And they started degrading the pay and benefits of our teachers, and it's just gotten worse and worse over the years. And then we were already behind, right, when it comes to the
yeah,
support for, meaning like monetary and every other kind, the retirement pay, all of that, when
mm-hmm,
we went into COVID. And then they did this heroic work all over the state, all over the country, all over the world too, right? But taking something that they had gone to school for and done in some cases for many years, flipping it into a virtual model on
on a
zero
dime,
notice, right? Somehow managing to make that work for some period of time. Then we have these crazy hybrid situations where they're not only trying to teach kids who are going through this unbelievable amount of stress, they're also making sure that they're fed and that they're safe and trying to keep them healthy and all these. So we do all of that.
yeah,
We all know what happened.
yeah,
They do all of that. And then this kind of
yeah, yeah,
nonsense starts coming up. And it's like, look, we have public schools not only for ourselves, but for our community,
yeah,
for our society,
yeah,
so that everybody has a baseline
yeah,
of a fact-based basic education of, English, math, science. That's why we have public schools. They're
exactly.
not there to fight ideological
And
battles.
it's so crazy because you have in the black and brown communities, you're hollowing them out financially so that they don't have the resources to provide the deepest level of education for their kids. And then you go to the suburban areas or the more affluent areas, they're hollowing out the education, right? So they have the financial resources to give the kids what they want, but they want to hollow out the education. Nobody benefits when you hollow out public education, and we become a sadder society because of it. Melinda, remember I said maybe we'll just talk for a half hour? Do you want to just give a half hour? How about we've
You
gone for
can't take
almost
a
a full
night off.
hour, but I knew it would be a good conversation because you stimulate thought when we talk, and we've only talked a couple of times, I know, but you stimulate thought, and I knew that I would have a good conversation. And I am so glad that you put your name on the ballot. I know that you're challenging. It's a challenge, and running for office and raising a family, and I'm so super happy that your spouse is supportive. Thank you for putting your name on the ballot because you could just be chilling at Notre Dame, like raking in that cash. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find us online. Our website is fountainforindiana, all one word.com. And we are also on Facebook and Instagram. We're more on Facebook, to be honest. That's our demographic. Malinda Fountain is my name on Facebook.
I love it. I love it. And do you have any events coming up, like fundraisers or volunteer opportunities?
We are canvassing. We're writing postcards. We're kind of past most of the big events since we're only 3 weeks out. We're focusing on getting out the vote.
Okay. And listen, even though we are only 3 weeks out, she probably could use a little extra money. So make sure y'all click on that donation link. She's sending out thank you cards, or she needs to buy water for people who are knocking doors, right? There's always something that she needs from a campaign perspective all the way up to the end. So give her a couple of dollars, $5. That's all you gotta do. $5. Donate some dollars to her campaign. I think she's doing an amazing job. Hey guys, I'm excited about something I want to share with you. My buddies and I, thank you for tuning in. Those that tuned in to our debate watch party with Miguel Hampton down in Jeffersonville with Common Conversation, and Deb Chubb up in Elkhart with Electable, her podcast. So we're getting together again along with Mark Gavart out of Fort Wayne and the My Labor Radio. We are going to host an election night watch party. Okay. We figured out what we didn't do right the first time so that we will be better at it the next time. But the whole goal is to create a space for us who bleed blue to come together, watch the polls, watch the returns, give updates. Maybe if I will probably be on location here in Marion County, I'm going to work out those filters so those microphones are not picking up everything. Trust me, I'm working on some things. But we want this to be a family. We want to make sure that we all have an opportunity to kind of come together, watch the results, maybe even talk about it in the chat, just so we're all together and rooting for each other, lifting each other up if our candidates didn't win, those type of things. Because bottom line is we're powerful when we come together. And as Democrats in Indiana, there are lots of us. I mean, Destiny Wells has been telling everybody since she kicked off her campaign, this is not a red state. We're a purple state with a voter turnout problem. And so I do believe that, this is just another way for us to do that. And I'm telling you, those other three voices add some amazing dynamics. I mean, if you've not heard Mark talk, he's like he's got the smoothest voice. Miguel is always going to hold people accountable when it comes to racial justice, or rather injustice. And Deb Chubb always fights for women. So don't let me go back to Mark, because he's My Labor Radio. He's always fighting for collective bargaining and that sector. So we all bring something different to the conversation. We all have our own voices, but you never know. The four of us are savvy enough. This could be a thing. So if you're not doing anything on election night and you're wanting to keep up with results, please tune in. We will make sure that we send out some information about that and where to find us. And we'll make sure that we're all in one spot this time. So we won't be all scattered all over the place, but we'll be able to come together and have those conversations and be a community and cry and laugh and do all the things that we do together. So, all right, Indiana's own Dana Black. I really do thank Malinda for joining us tonight, and anybody that tuned in. Be sure you can always check out old episodes on our older episodes, anything that you missed on YouTube and or Spotify. And if you have any suggestions, feel free to reach out to me. I'm easy to find. Scan the barcode. And in the meantime, we will holler at y'all next time. Indiana's own Dana Black. Turn left. I'll holler at y'all next time. Peace.